My presentation, I'm Lindsay Overmyer. I'm presenting on what the aphid is. And it's slightly a play on words after some questions that I received this summer. So we're gonna kind of dive into aphids and identify what we were seeing on our plants. So NDSU does not discriminate. Right. Yeah. So what we observed in the field this year, we had some wheat that had some, I wish we could make this screen bigger, but there are some limitations in this room. So we have a wheat head, we have soybeans, we have all these little dots there, another wheat head, but really we're looking at some aphids, more aphids there, little golden shells, as well as this orange thing up there. So what we're going to discuss is talk about what we saw, our cereal aphids and our soybean aphids. We did have some reaching some economic thresholds in some fields, right? It was very spotty. So that's where we have to go out and scout. And there's multiple considerations beyond the economic threshold, right? We got to think about those beneficial insects that are there, as well as the associated costs with the spray application and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to touch upon soybeans, and then I'll go cereal aphids, and then I'll kind of jump back and forth between those. So our soybean aphids, I went back to some of my radio segments. We first started seeing those about mid-July in this area. And again, I think late June was first seen in Sargent County, so very southeast part of the state. So it took a couple weeks to migrate up here. And so we do have winged and not winged aphids of the soybean aphid. So it just depends upon their development, if they will develop into wing or non-wing. Usually that non-wing means they're going to further migrate into the next, further migrate to wherever the wind blows them. And they don't overwinter in North Dakota. So they have to basically, I want to call it the Pygnalia pathway, but that's the soybean rest term, but it's that central Gulf, Texas, and kind of up that wind stream that they kind of get carried up. So for soybean aphids, we want to look to our southern friends, those states south. Hey, we have aphids. So then put that in our mind for the following week or a couple weeks to know how fast they may progress up to this area. Now we have cereal aphids. We had all, oh, fun. We had aphid, we had the green bug, bird cherry oat, and the English grain. So with aphids, I forgot to mention on the other, these have these little tailpipes. So sometimes people call tailpipes, the terminology there is that are cornicles. So they have little tailpipes at the end. You can briefly, gently see the difference between our green and our English. But that bird cherry oat has that darker band. They generally look a hair darker than the other two. Our green bug is the one that can have toxins in its saliva. So that is one that can do damage just being there, but also by feeding. So our aphids have our piercing, sucking mouth part. So that's where basically think of a straw that you can pierce something and then it just sucks all the fluid out of the plant. Our cereal aphids were found about first seen in about mid-June in this area. And again, we have some variable distribution that was seen. Additionally, we had some interesting planting season conditions, right? Some fields came up pretty quickly, where other fields took some more time. So germination and our growth stages then were kind of variable throughout. So your younger plants probably could tolerate less infestation than your older plants. Okay. Oh, I also mentioned that you These aphids can transmit or spread barley yellow dwarf virus. However, I was talking to some other agronomists. We really haven't seen that be an issue in this area. So if you see a barley yellow dwarf, the margin of the leaf is more yellow. That's kind of an indicator of barley yellow dwarf. However, that could also be confused with our potential nitrogen deficiency as well. So kind of gotta look at the whole picture to see which one of those you may have. But again, not super common in this area. Okay, so kind of discussed what they are, and but we need to know what conditions make them favorable for this area, or why did we see them more. Temperature plays a big role in any insect development, as well as our disease development. So cereal aphids, your low to mid 80 degrees and dry conditions, populations can increase exponentially. So within less than 7 days, we can keep having another generation. A weird, funny, geeky thing about aphids is that they have parthenogenesis, and that is just a fancy word that a mom can base, like an aphid can be born and already have aphids within her. Weird, yes. But that's how aphids can continue to go really quickly. Now our soybean aphids, we had some warm temperatures as well. So our 70 to 85 population can double in about 2 days, and from 90 to 95 temperatures reduce our rates actually. And from above 95, death can occur. So there was this time in the summer that it was like, well, maybe actually some of this heat could be killing some aphids. But we have to remember that if anybody has walked into a cornfield during the summer, right, we can walk in there, you're noticing that the climate is different in your cornfield versus standing outside of the cornfield. So there's that microclimate. Aphids have those microclimates as well. So just things to kind of like consider when you have temperatures. So maybe that temperature outside of the field, or that, not in the field, could be lower or warmer. Humidity, I'm not a climatologist to tell you, understanding the temperature of stuff in the canopy versus not, but something to consider. So let's start thinking about, do we need to make a decision to spray? So for one, we need to make sure we're scouting, and I think on the following slide I have that the aphids, so they have that piercing sucking mouth part, kind of like that straw that's going to drill in and find the good nutrients that they want. But they're going to go to the lush pieces. So when you're scouting, you want to look for that new growth on your wheat and soybeans. So here, we will pull out our handy dandy field crop insect management guide. We're going to talk about cereals. So we're going to go for one, I just went to barley. So we pull up our barley spot, and here we have barley insects right here. So we have our pictures that I just showed, and also our economic threshold. So this provides a little bit more information, but our vegetative stage, we're looking at 4 aphids per stem. Our complete heading through end of and basically flowering is 4 to 7. And then from flowering to milk, that's where we're looking at our kernels is 8 to 12. And then medium milk through early dough is greater than 12 aphids per stem. On our soybean economic threshold, we have vegetative stage. We need to assess your populations through your vegetative stage. However, being this far north, we're not going to see those aphids that high that quickly. Usually it's going to take a little bit later. So our reproductive stages, so flowering to seeding, you're looking at 250 aphids per plant when actively increasing in 80% of the field. So that's a lot to think of, like, how are we going to scout and look through that? So scouting, you want to make sure you're getting a good representation of the field, as well as being able to kind of do a representation of different plants, and then do your counting, and then see if that reaches your 80%. Again, you go to your book, you go to your soybeans, and you see your soybean aphids, and it provides some more information. There is pyrethroid resistance that has been occurring or started in 2017 here in North Dakota. So there is further information on that. If you're at full seed, you've reached physiological maturity, it's not really needed to do any treatment. Okay, so considerations beyond the economic threshold, right? What's the commodity price? Is that it's all about the numbers in the end, right? Not just about the insects, but what are we making money? So commodity price, what's your insecticide price? What are your weather conditions? Think about if it's going to rain, what happens if we have rain? What will that do to the aphid population? High or low? Rain. What? Could decrease. So rain could potentially wash some of these aphids away. That's good. If we have drought like we see, we're going to potentially have more aphids. And kind of going back to that temperature piece, are we going to continue in those favorable conditions that those temperatures are going to just be so great for aphid reproduction? So I think that's for sure important. Thinking about this year, we had things to consider beyond just the numbers. We had variable growth stages as well, but we also need to keep in mind about our beneficial insects, what we may see. So as I keep mentioning in scouting, especially for aphids, we need to look for aphids like that new growth. They want that lush piece, more nutrients flowing up. So whatever growth stage when you're scouting, look for that. Assess the number of aphids that we can count on here. And if we see heavy aphid infestation, they will eat and they secrete honeydew. Honeydew then attracts other insects, or further long-term could attract some sooty mold. But just to think about, if this is all sticky, look, aphids were there. They already made their evidence there. So that's why things are sticking to it. And then follow the beneficial insects. So we're going to go over that beneficial insects here. And we have a number of them. We have some lady beetles, some parasitic wasps, syrphid larvae, and also minute pirate bug and green lacewing. So we'll kind of go through these quickly to know what we're looking for. So our beneficial predators, they usually consume pretty rapidly, both as immatures and adults. They eat many species, so some of these are just generalists. It doesn't care if there's pizza versus ice cream, they're going to eat both. They're free living and highly mobile, very important in natural control. However, it's going to take some time in order for the beneficial insects to build up in some population for you to notice them. Just as the aphids took some time to build up, those beneficials need some more time too. But they're usually around. So your lady beetles or ladybugs, depending on what you want to say, one mature larva eats 30 to 50 aphids. So this is that little monster thing hanging out. That's going to do some damage. We have the adult, which we all know what the adult looks like. That can eat 100 to 300 aphids per day. So these also feed on white flies, thrips, mites, and other soft-bodied insects. So now we know that this red-orange thing is a pupa. So kind of seeing the whole life cycle here. We have our eggs, we have that larva, it goes into the pupa stage, and then we go to our adult. So we can have multiple generations per year feeding on our aphids. The parasitic wasp, it's pretty cool. We have it's a free living adult. It is parasitic as an immature. It's usually a specialist, and it's very small, so unlikely you'll be able to see it in the field. We have wasps. Right here, we have a wasp parasitizing an aphid. So this black insect is that parasitoid. That green is your aphid. So it is literally, I'll show you the cycle on the next page. And then we have the aphid mummies. So to like try to visualize this a little bit, we're going to start up here. So that picture was that parasitoid laying its egg into that aphid. Strange, but cool. And then that larvae, so that egg is then going to continue to develop into a larvae, and it basically eats that aphid from the inside out. So then what's remaining is your aphid mummy. So that mummy, so your aphid dies, so that's good. So that mummy remains. Then when you see a hole in it, that means that parasitoid has emerged from it. And now we have another adult to do the same thing. So what do we see on this picture? We see aphid mummies. So these two are the same pictures, just one's blown up a little bit more. And you don't want to hit that button because it disappears. So we have that, all these little circle casings. So those are the mummies. So that means depending on where you're at in the cycle, it either it has laid and it's dead, or excuse me, it has the parasitoid has is living inside and eating it from the inside out, or has already submerged. So depending on what you see, if you see a little hole in that, in some mummies you can see that hole. So that is what we're seeing. The other thing that we can see here, we still have probably some flowering going on there. That's probably finishing, but because there's aphids there, they secrete that honeydew, that sticky stuff, and it's that flower that's kind of stuck on there too. So multiple things. I know this is kind of a stretch, but we have a little white skeletons here. Those can be dead aphids as well. So when you see the field, there's multiple things to kind of think through what it is and like piece together that story of what is happening in that field. Okay. Another thing, I was out and I found this and I was like, ooh, what's that? I got to remember what that is. So these are syrphid fly or hoverfly. These are I mean, they're kind of nice, but they kind of just hover. They could just hover at your ear or wherever in the wing piece. And they're harmless. All they're looking for is that nectar or pollen. That's what they're trying to feed on. And adults are pretty small, but really it's that larva that are the predaceous ones. And they tend to specialize on aphids. So it's like this cape. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of cool, but weird looking thing. It's kind of a clear, but also have a hint of orange there. Lastly, we're not lastly quite, but we have the green lacewing. We also could see brown lacewings in the field as well. They're just different colors, but they're essence doing very much of a similar thing. We can get 200 aphids killed in a week by these larvae. So these are these like scary little monster things in the field. So they're going to be eating. And if you see this is also a good sign. Those are the eggs. They're laid on stalks because these guys are cannibalistic to each other. So they're protecting themselves where the mother is laying them on stalks. These guys develop, they're going to do some damage to your aphids. And these are the adults that are going to also do some, as you can see there. So they can feed on some caterpillars, soft-bodied insects, honeydew, nectar, and pollen. Another one you might see is the minute pirate bug, and I'm pretty sure these were likely out as well this year. They're predators of aphids and wheat, soybeans, and canola. They also have that piercing, sucking mouth part that they're gonna kind of suck the nutrients out of. These images are of mites and not aphids, but they can do the same with aphids. Okay, so that was pretty quick. So in summary, let's get out, scout the field, do a kind of a W pattern or a V or an X, whatever that you can get a representation of your field. Do some of those counting on those plants to know how many aphids we have per plant in those areas. And when you got to identify your pests, right? If we have, I know I'm specifically talking about aphids here, but maybe we have some other pests that could be going on. In soybeans, maybe we have the bean leaf beetle. Some of those we're seeing this year. Thistle caterpillar, which kind of are going to make this webbing effect on that, wrap that leaf and make a web in there. So identify what your pest is and what stage is it? Is it little, or is it a little bit bigger? Is it the end of its life cycle or not? If we have caterpillars that are quite large, that means they're probably at the end of their life cycle versus baby ones. And your babies are like teenagers. They're going to eat you out of house and home, okay? So baby caterpillars are more dangerous than your bigger ones, even though they look a little bit more dangerous because they're bigger. They're adults, they're going to eat less. Be familiar with your economic thresholds. Make sure you have this handy or you're out there talking to your crop consultant. I know in this area we have lots of crop consultants. So just talk to them or make sure you kind of do a little reading of yourself. And you are the farmer. You are making these calls. So we can say they're at economic threshold, but is it worth making that application? Is that insecticide cost itself, the application? Is your commodity price like high, low, like take all that into consideration, pencil it out. You are the farmer, you can make that decision. So know what those costs are associated with your desired management, if that is to treat or not to treat, or have those friendly little predators help you out in that situation. So in closing, we have some good resources from NDSU. These are common natural enemies of insect pests, so that will provide those numbers of how many that ladybug will eat. So that's where I got some of those from. And again, then I'm just linking back to this. I don't know if everyone heard that announcement earlier, is that these guys had some printing issues. So we don't have them for you, sorry, in print. However, if you leave your name, we'll notify you when some of these are in the county offices. So, and I think I checked, was that today or for sure yesterday? I did not see the 2024 guide up online yet. So that's further up the chain from the counties that we can't hit, not in our hands. So with that, I'm Lindsay Overmyer, as stated before, here in this county, Ramsey County. So don't be afraid to reach out if you guys have questions. we're always welcome to answer the phone and try to give you our best answer. So